The Russian authorities abandoned and did not feed their soldiers. 29 mobilized men from the Ural city of Irbit left military positions in Ukraine. The Russian news portal E1 has talked to the wives of deserters.
There was no food and water supply. They had no command. They brought our men to their destination and ordered them to dig trenches. The command gave our men bayonet knives, not even a shovel, and they dug trenches for themselves with bayonet knives. There were no other tasks assigned to them. Our men starved for several weeks, asked for help, but no one answered them by walkie-talkie. Maria, wife of a mobilized man, in an interview with Ivan.
The wives explain that their husbands abandoned their positions on the battlefield due to difficult living conditions and constant shelling by the armed forces of Ukraine. According to them, the mobilized men were afraid to be killed. Now the military from Irbit is called deserters and is threatened with a criminal case.
We've also called them on the speakerphone, and you know, there are 29 people and they are all asking for help. Please get us out of here. They have been in Ukraine for 2 months. They've served their duty faithfully for 2 months. They're already tired. They have no strength. They all already have health issues. They survived 2 months there. Well done. Now let them return home. Christina, wife of a mobilized man, in an interview with Ivan.
The women have appealed to the military leadership and local authorities with a request to return their men home and conduct a medical examination. However, representatives of the Russian authorities believe that the mobilized are themselves to blame for their poor health. Allegedly, they abused alcohol and simulated an attack on them. The mobilized are really in a difficult situation, but it's their own fault. According to eyewitnesses, they abused alcohol, simulated an attack by shooting a petrol generator with assault rifles, for which, by the way, Irbit with the rest of the world had collected money. Then they abandoned their weapons, armor, helmets, grenades, withdrew from their positions and fled to the city. Thus, they endangered the lives of fellow soldiers who were in neighboring positions. They left 500 meters of the front line without defense. I think this is a desertion and betrayal. This needs to be dealt with harshly, both with honor and by law. Maxim Ivanov, deputy of State Duma, on Telegram. According to the Russian State Duma deputy, counterintelligence has already taken one of the instigators, and the rest of the rebellion participants have been sent back to the front line, distributed among different platoons. Human rights activists explain that it is better for men who can potentially be mobilized in Russia to prevent getting to the front line at the initial stage than to get killed by the military of the armed forces of Ukraine or even at the hands of their own fellow citizens. Human rights activist Pavlo Wysansky explains that the Russian military has their rights, but no one fulfills them. I know more than 15 cases for the past months alone when deserters of Russian units came into shooting contact with the people's police when they tried to detain them. You see, they have the beginnings of an internal struggle between Russian deserters of the occupying forces and the so-called people's militias. In fact, units of the armed formations of the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics, which are now merging into the Russian army. Experts assure that Russians who fall under mobilization have the opportunity not to go to the front line and protect themselves. Human rights activists advise not to come to the military enlistment office and not to receive summons under any circumstances. Another way to avoid mobilization is to formally work for a critical infrastructure enterprise in Russia, whose workers are not subject to mobilization yet. It is better to leave the city and settlements by hitchhiking, by some country buses, and not on federal highways. You should relocate. It is also necessary to change the phone number, so that it does not become linked. If people want to go abroad, then they can register themselves as part of a sports team, for example, a coach. In principle, everything that once was, when they fled from the Soviet Union, is now relevant for the Russian Federation. It is best to sit out this time now, because there was a time when men in the temporary occupied territories did this. They simply hid and did not catch the eye of the local commandant's office and did not respond to calls to the military registration and enlistment offices. Experts do not advise men to cross the Russian border directly. After all, the Russian military leadership, having seen a large influx of citizens who wanted to leave after the announcement of the so-called partial mobilization, set up special points at the borders where the fleeing men were handed out summons and were forcibly mobilized. Reported by Pavlo Stelmach, Victoria Sinko, UATV News.